Have you ever wondered how a small-time drug operation turned into one of the most notorious criminal organizations in history? Join me as we delve into the fascinating and often bloody history of the Medellin Cartel. This infamous criminal organization dominated the drug trade in the 1980s and early 1990s, smuggling billions of dollars worth of cocaine into the United States and other countries. Despite their ruthless tactics and violent methods, the Medellin Cartel's impacts on the drug trade and global culture cannot be denied. In this video, we'll explore the rise and fall of the Medellin Cartel, from its humble beginnings to its eventual downfall. Before we dive in, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever wondered how a small-time drug operation turned into one of the most notorious criminal organizations in history? What were the motivations behind the leaders of the Medellin Cartel, and how did they build an empire that spanned the globe? How did the United States and other countries respond to the threat of the Medellin Cartel, and what ultimately led to its downfall? Stick around to find out. The Medellin Cartel began as a small-time drug operation in the late 1970s, when a group of Colombian drug traffickers, including Pablo Escobar, recognized the potential of cocaine as a highly profitable drug. At the time, cocaine was a relatively new drug on the global market, but its popularity was growing rapidly. The cartel established a network of laboratories and transportation routes to smuggle cocaine into the United States and other countries, becoming one of the world's largest cocaine exporters. As the cartel's operation grew, so did its power and influence in Colombian society. The influx of drug money transformed the country's economy and politics, with the cartel using its vast resources to fund infrastructure projects and social programs, as well as to bribe politicians and law enforcement officials. The cartel's key figures, including Pablo Escobar, became larger-than-life figures in Colombian society, with Escobar himself developing a cult-like following among some segments of the population. However, the Medellin Cartel was also known for its ruthless tactics, including kidnappings, bombings, and assassinations, to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to their business. The cartel's use of violence and intimidation was seen as a necessary evil to protect their interests and maintain their power. These tactics set the stage for the conflicts that would follow in the years ahead, as the cartel's power grew and the government and other groups began to fight back. The Medellin Cartel's rise to power in the 1980s was a defining moment in the history of organized crime. This section will provide an overview of the factors that enabled the cartel to become one of the world's most powerful and notorious criminal organizations. At the heart of the Medellin Cartel's success was its leader, Pablo Escobar. Escobar's willingness to use extreme violence to eliminate competitors and his shrewd business acumen allowed the cartel to gain a dominant position in the cocaine trade. Escobar also formed strategic alliances with other key figures in the cartel, including the Ochoa brothers and Carlos Ledez, who played a significant role in expanding the cartel's operations and influence. The cartel's diversification into other illegal activities beyond drug trafficking was another key factor in its rise to power. The cartel established money laundering and smuggling operations, as well as arms trafficking and political corruption, which allowed it to further expand its criminal empire. Furthermore, the Medellin Cartel formed strategic alliances with other criminal organizations, including the Cali Cartel and the North American Mafia. These partnerships enabled the cartel to expand its reach and influence and to protect its interests from law enforcement and rival cartels. The social and economic impact of the Medellin Cartel's rise to power was immense. The cartel's vast wealth allowed it to wield significant influence over Colombian society, including the media and political institutions. However, the cartel's use of violence and intimidation to maintain its power caused immense suffering and destruction, particularly for the people of Medellin. The Medellin Cartel's rise to power inevitably led to conflict with law enforcement and rival cartels, leading to a violent and bloody period of Colombia's history. This section will examine the war on drugs that erupted in the 1980s and 1990s, as the Colombian government and the United States sought to dismantle the cartel and curb the flow of cocaine into the U.S. The section will begin by exploring the strategies employed by the Colombian government and the U.S. to combat the cartel, including extradition, targeted assassinations, and military operations. The video will also discuss the role of the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, in the war on drugs and the impact of the Reagan administration's zero-tolerance policy on drug trafficking. Despite these efforts, the Medellin Cartel continued to thrive, even as its leaders were killed or captured. The cartel's vast wealth and resources allowed it to adapt to changing circumstances and continue to smuggle drugs into the US. The video will also examine the impact of the war on drugs on Colombian society, particularly Medellin, which became known as the murder capital of the world due to the cartel's violent tactics. The video will explore how the conflict between the cartel and law enforcement led to a wave of violence and terror as the cartel waged war against the Colombian state and rival cartels. The section will conclude by examining the eventual downfall of the Medellin Cartel, as the Colombian government and the US increased their pressure on the cartel and key figures were killed or captured. The video will also discuss the legacy of the war on drugs, including the impact on Colombian society and the ongoing challenges of drug trafficking and organized crime. The Medellin Cartel's downfall in the early 1990s was a dramatic and violent end to one of the most powerful criminal organizations in history. This section will explore the factors that led to the cartel's demise, as well as the events that ultimately led to the capture or death of its key members. One of the primary factors that contributed to the cartel's downfall was the increased pressure from law enforcement, both in Colombia and the United States. The Colombian government and the US increased their efforts to combat the cartel, resulting in the arrest or killing of several key members, including Pablo Escobar himself in 1993. Another factor was the fracturing of the cartel's leadership, as various factions within the organization began to compete for power and influence. This infighting weakened the cartel's ability to function effectively, leading to a decline in its operation and influence. The section will also explore the role of the Cali cartel in the downfall of the Medellin Cartel. The Cali cartel, which had previously been a key ally of the Medellin Cartel, began to compete with its rival for control of the drug trade. This competition led to a series of violent confrontations between the two cartels, further weakening the Medellin Cartel's position. And that's it for our video on the history of the Medellin Cartel. We've explored the rise and fall of one of the most notorious criminal organizations in history, from their humble beginnings to their eventual downfall. What do you think about the Medellin Cartel and their impact on the world? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.